Joyride, 1957, a novel of intrigue by J.P. Wasmiller, chapter 158. James got back in his car and headed south and west to Highway 1. He drove down the coast until he reached Laguna Beach. He spotted the Riviera Hotel and parked in front. He then went in and got a room with an ocean view. He went to his room and dropped his bag off. It now contained 2 gold cups. The numbers were 1888 and 1333. He now possessed 4 cups in all, the aforementioned 2 and 2 others. Number 1777 was in a storage box in San Francisco Airport. The key to the box was in another box, and the key to that box was in the trunk of his rented 1957 Chrysler 300, parked in the long-term lot of San Francisco Airport. The other cup, 1555, was checked at the desk at the Fairmont Hotel in downtown San Francisco. James hoped he could remember all this information with his scrambled brain and travel fatigue. He wasn't sure he could. James walked out on his veranda at the Riviera Hotel and watched a gorgeous sunset. The pink walls of the hotel changed to a color he'd never seen before in the sun's fading light. He watched the waves of the light surf reach the sand and took a few deep breaths. His head began to ache a bit in front, something that happened every time he took deep breaths. He surmised his weakened brain was probably getting too much oxygen. He then sat back and dozed a bit before his stomach won out. Went down the street, hailed a cab, and asked the cabbie what the best restaurant in town was. The cabbie said, "I'll take you." Shortly after going north for several blocks, they arrived at a beautiful restaurant overlooking the ocean. The sign read, "Victor Hugo Inn." He thanked the cabbie and then went inside. The place was crowded, but he got a table by the window. He had a view of the surf, dimly lit by the city lights. He ordered a Coca-Cola large, and when it came, he leaned back and stared out the window. He noticed upon looking around that there were several celebrity types. He thought one might be Kim Novak, but he wasn't sure. Another might be Jack Lemmon, but he wasn't sure about that either. Then he did recognize somebody he knew. It was Joe DiMaggio. He wasn't sure, but he thought Marilyn was seated at DiMaggio's table. He tried to remember what Victor Hugo was famous for. Finally it came to him. The Hunchback of Notre Dame. Hugo had written it. James had read it for a high school report. He thought the book fascinating. Looking in another direction, he thought he saw the current Vice President of the United States seated at another table with the current California governor. He couldn't believe his eyes as he stared at them. He shook his head violently. When he looked again, the same picture came into view. Between the 2 politicians was a beautiful blonde woman with the largest breasts he had ever seen. One of the golden orbs was actually hanging out of her dress and resting on the table, rather on the governor's hand. "Misty," he said too loudly. To his amazement, she heard him, held up a glass of champagne in acknowledgment, and then she quickly turned back to her table mates.